Okay, gang, we're back. In our continuing series on how to build a ukulele, today we are going to talk about and work with linings. They're called linings. Some people call them kerfings, not kerfing. Kerfing is the process of actually adding a slot so you can bend wood. They're called linings. We're not going to use solid linings. We're going to use kerfed linings. Now, some builders call them tentalones. I think that's an old Spanish thing. We're going to go over a bunch of stuff today. Same process as we go before. The demo, the talking part today may be a little long. We're gonna go over a bunch of stuff, and then we'll do the demo. We'll install one side of the kerf lining into the ukulele that we're building, and then we'll wrap it up. So if you want to fast forward to the demo part, by all means, please do. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Comments, questions, by all means, pop them down below. And I guess the thing is to subscribe. Somebody told me, oh, he didn't get notified of it. It's because he didn't subscribe. So if you want to subscribe, you'll get the next video, and then you can continue on with the whole series with us. All right, let's start with linings in and of itself. A lot of people will use solid linings on ukulele. Some will use solid on one side, the top, and then kerf linings on the back. All kinds of stuff out there. Do your own research, figure out what it is you want to do. Now, what is the purpose of the linings? The linings is actually to give a better gluing surface from the top and the back to the sides. If you think about it, sides are super thin, right? And then you're going to glue this top onto this thin side. There's not a whole lot of gluing surface over there. So what happens when you add a lining in, we'll just use this as a demo, you get, well, in this case, 1/4 inch of gluing surface to glue onto the top and to the back. So much better structure over there. Some solid linings, they don't tend to be as thick as a 1/4 inch. The reason I use, in this case, 1/4 inch linings is because we bind almost all of the instruments. So there has to be some, when I do the binding, I'll go right through the sides because the sides are so thin, and we'll add purfling inside. So oftentimes I'll actually hit the lining on the inside, and you'll see that when we get to binding the instrument, which we'll do on this one, I'm sure. All right, so purpose is to provide a bigger gluing surface for your top and back to the sides. Kind of self-explanatory on that one. What it also does is, solid linings in particular, stiffen the sides. And for those of you that subscribe to stiff sides, you can do research on that. I actually do, which is why I do reverse kerfed linings. If you know how an I-beam works in construction, that's kind of the theory. I might be completely wrong on that one, but I like the look of reverse kerfed linings, and I like how the final instrument comes out. Now, one would argue, I'll just say this, when we install reverse kerfed linings on it and you pull it out of the mold, the sides are really stiff. It doesn't move because of this solid edge on the outside of the lining. If I say on the outside, it's actually on the inside. And it really doesn't bend a whole lot. Whereas if you glue the lining like this, and the kerfs are on the outside, the sides can move. So one would argue that the sides are stiffer with reverse kerfed lining. And that was my premise. But I could argue that once this is glued onto a surface, it's not gonna move anyway. So you still got stiff sides. Figure it out yourself. Argue with yourself, don't answer yourself. All right, let's talk about the kerf lining. So I'm using Spanish cedar on this one. Basically, I cut this on a cross-cut sled on the saw. And then what I do is, on the cross-cut sled itself, I actually have a pin or a nail spaced out. So once I do a cut, the pin sticks out, onto the next one, cut, and the pin keeps everything like this. So you can see how flexible this is. However, if we were to bend this, there's still a lot of surface. In Spanish cedar, it will break. This breaks on a bend. So, I mean, I'm sure I could make it a lot thinner, but it breaks a lot easier as well too. So what I do, which absolutely makes no sense in some cases, is I pre-bend the kerf lining. All right, and I did a modification on my bender. So we're still talking story. We're not going through the demo yet, so bear with me. Let's talk about the modification that I did. All right. So, I just redid my bender. Let's see what we can see. All right, right here. So this is basically the back end. We'll do this. Okay, right there. I added in this angle iron, so this is actually the end of the side where I want it to go. So you saw me, and somebody made a comment to me the other day about, or a question, that I bend the sides from the back. I don't bend it from the middle. Exactly, I bend it from the back. I have a stop right there, and it goes, and that's it. It fits right into the mold, exactly what it is. I don't trim anything. So I put that there. I put a piece of wood on top of this, which will hold the sides in. Okay, and then you can see a little gap in here. I don't know if you can see it. Trust me, there's a gap in here that stops. The sides will slide right inside here. But what all this mess is over here is I have the lining actually stopped right on top of here. And all this does, this piece, I glued it on, is to hold the lining in. That's all it looks like, right? To hold the lining in so it doesn't pop out. That's it. And I pre-bent the lining. So it's nice and pre-shaped when we glue it in. Now, this is actually 3/4 of an inch because my tail block is 1 3/4 of an inch. So I figured, just put it right here. But of course, it doesn't come out perfect. What I had to do is still trim off 2 blocks of the lining to make it fit. And of course, the front side, super long, trim to fit. You can see it coming down over here. I'll trim down to fit on the front side. Okay, there's the modification to the bender. I would have done this anyway. I just added this in just so I can bend the kerf linings on it. I don't know. I might make it higher, then I don't have to cut off anything. We'll see. All right. Couple more things. Still talking story. Remember this? This is our setup. Did a few things to get here. And let me make sure the camera is where it's supposed to be. All right. Let's push it right here. Okay. So I spaced this out since last week we're here. I used these half-inch blocks, and I did that. Put it down, and then put all of the clamps in on the inside. We talked about these earlier. So by doing this, this is the top. We're going to do the top today. This spaces it out, and then I can glue in the linings from this side. I have a little radius dish right here. Believe me, it's radius. And we'll put the back because it's radius on top of there. A couple things here. I can use we'll just show you what we're using. It's super simple. There we go. Clothespins, cut off with a rubber band. Now obviously this rubber band's broken, so I got a whole bunch inside here. One more thing we did to get before we got here. On the tail block itself, and not everyone does this. My theory, you do what you want. You can't really see it from there. Let's see, right there? Yeah, you can see it. Right over here. What I did was, again, this is the top. The lining is going to be 1/4 inch all the way around. What I did was I beveled off the tail block down to only a 1/4 inch gluing surface here. Now, why do I do that? Oh, here's a premise that I came up with. All right. When you glue the top on here, and you have this entire piece as a gluing surface. By the way, my tail block used to be much bigger. Essentially, you kill the top all the way in this area right here, almost up to the bridge. It's not going to move because it's solidly attached to the tail block, sticking way out here. So what I do is I make the tail block as part of the lining. Then the top doesn't see the tail block as anything different other than a gluing surface like the lining going all around. Does it work? I never scientifically measured it, but it works for me. I'm going to keep on going with it. One would argue that since the ukulele wants to fold in on itself, this is not enough gluing surface over here. Again, it's worked for me so far. And I've had a number of instruments go out. This is not a failure point. Normally it's going to be the bridge, but this is not a failure point just yet. We're going to continue. Okay. So now on these spaces over here, we talked about this. You got to make sure there's also enough room on the inside so you can obviously clamp both sides. So you can clamp your pins and have room enough to glue your linings. There's one more thing we did before getting this all clamped up. We took everything out, and now is a good time to go ahead and sand the inside and make sure everything is nice and pretty, the tail block, the heel block. For those that subscribe to scrapers, you can scrape the inside. Now, I know we went and nicely finished sanded it before bending, but as we all know, anytime you add water to wood, and then you bend it, funky stuff happens on the inside. So it's nice to put a surface on the inside if you subscribe to that. Some of us will go ahead and shellac the inside. I've done that before. I kind of toss back and forth. But anyway, enough of that. We're where we're at. I can take my spacers out. Sorry. And now we are going to glue some linings. Oh, I'm going to show you the linings. So they've kind of unbent a little. What I've done already is I've kind of measured it, went in, cut it down to size on both ends, and then sand it to make sure it's nice. So you can see where this is going to go, just like this on both sides. We're going to make a mess, because as you know, and somebody asked me what kind of glue I use. 315 hide glue. I'm sorry, 192 hide glue. The 315 is for 315 is for the bridges. We'll get back to this later, but here it is. Hide glue 192 clear, high clarity. Pretty much use this for every wood-to-wood surface on the instrument. You guys have seen it. Yes, I keep it in bottles. Yes, I have stainless steel cap screws in there to keep it upright inside my water bath over here. And once I'm done with it, put it in the freezer. Maybe I'll do a hide glue video later on. I did a thing for Official Luthier Forum. I did a post on that on one of the tip things. Okay, I am going to shut up. It is now 12 minutes. I'm going to shut up. We're just going to glue, and then we'll come back after that. Okay, and that is it. What we're going to do is we're going to let this dry for a little bit. In fact, it's not going to take that long because it's hide glue. And then we're going to go on the back side. Now, the one thing about the back side, because it's radius, we're going to make it a little bit proud. Not much, because the radius is not a whole lot. If you flip it over, you'll see the heel block and the tail block. Basically, you want the inside to match the radius of the heel block and the tail block. Again, it's not going to be much. It's going to be a hair, maybe, because when you radius down on the sanding block, you're going to take down the outer edges of the lining. You don't have to go that much because we're probably going to cut through all of it when we do the binding anyway. Okay, so there is gluing on kerf lining. The nice thing about hide glue, you saw me take off the braces on the inside or the spanners on the inside and clean it up. One would argue, well, it's hide glue, it's going to dry clear anyway, nobody's going to see it. Well, you're still going to see it, but that is the opportune time to go ahead and clean it up. We'll do the same thing for the back. In theory, I could, well, once upon a time I had a thinner outside mold, and I could glue both sides at the same time. I could do the top and back. This one, the mold is a little bit thicker, so I have to do linings one side at a time. But we'll probably leave this for another half an hour, pull it off. That's really all it needs, and it'll be set by then because the hide glue is going to evaporate. It doesn't cure, and then we'll go ahead and do the back side, and then we'll come back. We'll do the next video on sanding it and probably doing some bracing. Again, you got any questions, comments, anything you want to see differently, anything on the side of the process, we might actually do a video on actually cutting the kerfs. I just redid my cross clutch sled, so I got to put another pin in there, and we may do a video on that. All right, guys, see you next time.